I never imagined that the quiet neighborhood I moved into would one day become the setting for the most shocking chapter of my life. My name is Emily Carter, and for most of my 38 years, I believed I had built a life grounded in trust, love, and routine. I had a husband, David, who I thought was loyal. We had a comfortable home, a teenage daughter named Claire, and the sort of suburban life people often think of as stable. But sometimes, the biggest cracks in a marriage don't appear until something unexpected forces you to see the truth. It all started the night my neighbor, Michael Thompson, knocked on my door. Michael and his wife, Karen, lived 2 houses down. They were both around our age, and for years we'd waved politely when mowing the lawn, exchanged small talk at block parties, and occasionally helped each other out with things like borrowing tools or watching each other's mail when traveling. Michael was the type of man who carried himself with quiet confidence, always friendly, never too intrusive. That's why his late-night visit shook me to my core. It was a Thursday evening in early autumn. David had been working late at the office for the past few weeks, something I'd grown accustomed to. Claire was upstairs finishing homework, and I was curled on the couch with a book when the doorbell rang. At first, I hesitated. It was close to 11 p.m. Who could possibly be at my door at this hour? When I opened the door, there stood Michael, his expression unreadable. He shifted on his feet like a man struggling with something heavy inside him. "Emily, I know this is strange," he began, his voice low, almost urgent. "But I need to talk to you. It's important." I almost laughed nervously, thinking perhaps there had been some emergency. A broken pipe, a suspicious person in the neighborhood, something practical like that. Instead, he leaned closer, lowering his voice as if the entire world might be listening. "I think your husband is having an affair with my wife." For a moment, I stood frozen, his words circling my brain, but not registering. I shook my head. "What are you talking about? That can't be true." Michael's eyes were steady, full of a mix of pain and determination. "I've seen them together." I didn't want to believe it either, but I can't ignore it anymore. Tonight, when Karen said she was going for a late grocery run, I followed her. She didn't go to the store. She met David at a hotel. My breath caught in my throat. My body trembled, and I gripped the edge of the doorframe to steady myself. I wanted to slam the door, tell him he was mistaken, accuse him of lying. But deep down, something in my gut knew Michael wasn't making this up. The signs had been there: David's late nights, his distant demeanor, the sudden way he guarded his phone. I had brushed it off as stress, as the weight of his job, as anything other than betrayal. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because we both deserve the truth," Michael replied. "And because I don't think it should stay hidden anymore." That night, I barely slept. My mind raced through memories, trying to connect dots, trying to justify, to deny, to accept. Claire came downstairs at one point, rubbing her eyes and asking why I was awake so late, and I just smiled weakly and told her I couldn't sleep. But inside, my heart was breaking. The next morning, I confronted David. He was pouring himself coffee, dressed neatly for work, acting as though everything in our world was normal. "David," I said quietly, "where were you last night?" He glanced up at me, his eyes flickering with something almost like guilt before he masked it with a casual shrug. "Working late." "Why?" I took a deep breath. "Michael came by. He said you were with Karen." The color drained from his face. He didn't deny it immediately, and that silence was enough of an answer. My knees weakened, and I sank into a chair, feeling like my entire marriage had collapsed in that moment. "Emily," he finally said, setting his cup down, "I never meant for you to find out this way. I didn't want to hurt you." Tears blurred my vision. "You didn't want to hurt me? David, you've been lying to me, to Claire, to this entire family." He reached for me, but I pulled back, my body stiff. The betrayal felt like poison coursing through me. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Michael and I spoke often, both of us trying to process the wreckage left behind by the people we had trusted most. We compared notes, timelines, excuses our spouses had fed us. It was painful, but strangely comforting to know I wasn't crazy, that someone else understood exactly what I was going through. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the houses, Michael and I sat on my porch. There was a quiet between us, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. He finally turned to me and said something that left me stunned. "Emily, what if we didn't let them take everything from us? What if we found comfort in each other?" It was a late-night proposal of a different kind, whispered with raw honesty. My heart raced. I didn't know if it was the loneliness, the anger, or the need for connection that made his words linger inside me. I was torn. Part of me wanted to run, to shield myself from more pain, while another part ached for someone who truly understood my brokenness.
I didn't answer him that night.
Instead, I went inside, my emotions tangled in ways I couldn't unravel. Over the next few weeks, my life became a storm of decisions. Do I stay with David and try to rebuild trust? Do I walk away and start over? Do I allow myself to even consider Michael's proposal, or would that only entangle me in more heartache? Claire began to notice the tension. One night, she asked me outright, "Mom, are you and Dad okay?" I held her close, fighting back tears. "We're going through a hard time, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, you will always be loved." In the end, I made a choice that surprised even me. I confronted Karen one afternoon, meeting her in a small cafe away from prying eyes. She looked startled when I sat across from her, but I wasn't there to fight. "Why?" I asked simply. "Why him? Why betray your family, your marriage, your daughter?" Her eyes welled up.
"I don't know, Emily."
I was selfish. I was unhappy. And I dragged David into my mess. I never wanted it to explode like this. Her words didn't heal me, but they gave me clarity. I couldn't chain myself to the pain forever. I had to decide what kind of woman, what kind of mother I wanted to be moving forward. David begged for forgiveness. He promised it was over, that he would do anything to rebuild. Part of me wanted to believe him, to salvage the years we had shared. But another part knew trust, once shattered, never returns the same. As for Michael, he remained a steady presence, though he never pushed me again. That late-night proposal lingered between us like an unspoken truth, but I realized what I needed most wasn't to jump into another relationship. What I needed was to rediscover myself. Months passed, and slowly, I began to heal. I focused on Claire, on rebuilding my independence, on learning to trust my own strength again. David and I eventually separated. It wasn't easy, but it was the path that allowed me to breathe again. And Michael? We remained friends. Two people bound by betrayal, but also by resilience. Perhaps someday, when the wounds aren't so fresh, something more might bloom between us. But for now, what mattered most was that I had found my voice again.